Welcome back, people of the world. We are here with another collaboration with Mental Warfare and the Release Valve. I am your co-host Kyle Spain, and this is my man Sean Hanlon from the Release Valve. And we have a special guest today. Who we got on the show today, Sean?
Yeah, we got Newark royalty in the house tonight. We got big guest. We've been looking forward to it. Our guest tonight. He's a husband, he's a father, he's a pastor, leadership coach, marriage counselor, grief counselor, and a community organizer. This guy's doing it all, man. And we're very lucky and privileged to have him here. So I want to welcome Barry Taimani to the show.
Welcome, Barry.
Man, thank y'all. I don't get that introduction often. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's just due process, but yeah, man, it's an honor to be here, share space with you guys. When Justin hit me up, on your episode 7, and then clicked on the link and I saw the title of the heart valve. Man, I'm huge on the heart, right?
Yeah.
And the understanding of what you put in is what you project to this world, right?
Absolutely.
And it was crazy because I got the call, or you guys reached out, and the day after, my wife's uncle had a massive heart attack. And it was called the Widowmaker's heart attack. And so it was like an interesting coincidence that this podcast called The Heart Valve is hitting me up. And the same time, I'm, because anytime something like that happens medically with anybody that I know, I try to do my research and started to learn about the 4 main arteries of the heart. Yeah. And then I was just like, man, it's not coincidence, I started learning about, how we clear those valves. They had to do triple bypass surgery to clear the valves. And so bringing that energy to this invitation to talk about, the pressures of life, it's really cool to be sharing space with you guys. So it's not coincidence, So thank you.
Hey, man, I'm sorry to hear about what you're going through. And again, we appreciate you coming on and being able to share space with you, being able to learn from you, being able to hear about what you're going through. And I just got chills, man. I just got chills.
I didn't want to say that. I had little goosebumps when he was talking. I was like, oh, shit.
Anytime that I get chills, I'm already know we're in great presence of somebody, and what you just said is just of him having to clean out the valves, man. I kind of relate that to our filter system, right? We have to go through life, and every day we have to go through these battles, and it's not easy, right? We're not happy on a daily, and when the enemy is attacking us, there's a lot that we have to filter, and those filters get clogged up, right? You know what I'm saying? And the release valve is important for healing and growth, man. And so already when you said that, it gave me chills, and it was like an immediate connection. And again, thank you for coming on and sharing that with us.
Yeah, Theo Bethel is doing good. He's doing good, man. He sent us a picture. He had his surgery, and the very next day, he sent the family a picture. So he's doing good. He's in recovery. He's got the tubes out. So it's kind of crazy learning about how the triple bypass surgery is kind of common, but the turnaround for recovery is quicker than it used to be. So he's doing good.
Okay.
So thank you guys for your concern.
Awesome. Well, okay, man. Well, why don't you, give us a little bit of background about yourself? Give us a little bit of your childhood. How you grew up, and what led you to be a pastor, and where you're at today.
Yeah, man. For me, I was born in Redwood City, California, and then, my dad, he became a pastor in '85, and so I grew up, in Redwood City, where all my uncles were gangbangers. And while my dad was in this new position of leadership in the church, he thought about us. We were all, it was my older brother, Isaiah, which and then me, and then my younger brother. So my dad was intentional about making sure that we grew up in an environment that was safe, and so after the '89 earthquake, we moved from Redwood City to Newark. And that's where we started our upbringing. So I was in kindergarten. And so, growing up in Newark, grew up in Newark all my life. Went to Snow Elementary, Newark Junior High. Graduated in 2001 from Newark Memorial. I saw no Justin. I saw no, many people from that city. But it's for me, you know, it wasn't until we had to move back because we got evicted from our house in Newark, and we had to move back to Redwood City, the place my dad wanted to keep us from, and it wasn't by choice. And so, my junior year, we were back in Redwood City, and Isaiah was a senior. My oldest was a senior, so he was commuting my brother and I to school every morning. But we were in the proximity of all my uncles and them that were just up to no good. And eventually, coming back to Redwood City on a Friday night, and they're a block away, you're a teenager, you're curious. I just started to immerse myself into that gang life. And it was, it started off as just being around my cousins, my uncles. Mm-hmm. But, when the sun comes down, it was just a different lifestyle, mm-hmm. And when you're constantly, and as a kid, you kind of glorified that. We knew about the stories. We knew about the crazy uncles and all the things they did. But, when you get older, now you're exposed to that and you're kind of old enough to, kind of play around in that playground. It definitely was an eye opener of just the evil in this world. You know what I mean? Not just, from my close ones, but just like it's out there when you step into that world,
Yeah.
And so, being a pastor was never on my radar. I grew up in church. My dad was a pastor, and he raised us in church. We went to church religiously, literally twice on Sundays, every Wednesday, Fridays youth groups, and then Saturday morning prayer. So, we prayed when we woke up. We prayed when we got in the car. We prayed when we got home. Before we went to bed, we did our devotionals. So I was saturated in faith, right? That was a deep part of my roots. But as I turned 18 and we're living in Redwood City, I was kind of like, man, I'm done with this. I'm like, it was definitely, my perspective of it is like it was kind of force fed.
Yeah.
There was definitely some, intentional things that my parents did for us that really was good, moral, kind of standards that we were just surrounded by. My parents were amazing. But there was definitely some legalism in our upbringing that, that I wrestled with as I got older, you know? Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of, there was a misunderstanding of God's grace because of the way that I was disciplined when I messed up. So every time I messed up, there was just like, iron fist that came down that taught me a misconception of what grace truly was. And nothing against my parents. They were doing the best that they could, but I turned 18 and I rebelled, just full on. Just I just started hanging out with my uncles and them, just started selling drugs, and it didn't happen slowly. It happened quickly, Yeah. And so, and I had to prove myself. You know what I mean? Because it was funny because I was from Newark and everybody was from Redwood City, so that their nickname for me was Square Bear from Newark.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
But mind you, as a kid who has a lot of built up like anger that nobody else knew, that was an outlet that I saw. Words of trying to humiliate me was like an open door for me to prove myself.
An opportunity for you to show yourself.
Yeah, it's like, all right, if that's how you feel, then I better show that that's not who I am. Yep. And so I had a violent. I was very violent because I was abused when I was a kid. Full transparency. We're gonna let my heart out right now.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
Please do it. We appreciate
that's why we're here.
And so, at the age of 5, I was sexually abused, and this was trauma that, as a kid, you don't know how to deal with this stuff. You're so
Yeah.
young. You're wondering, what is this and why is it
Yeah.
happening?
You don't exactly know that it's wrong either.
Nah,
Right.
you're
Right.
you're,
But
you're
it just
innocent,
feels wrong. Right. Yeah.
right?
Feels wrong,
just
but you don't
yeah.
know. If they're doing it, then it must be okay because this is an adult and I trust this person.
Exactly. And then so when my teenage years came around, it was the realization that, hold up, this is so wrong. But
Yeah.
then now I'm so deep into it that it was like, but I guess I'm already kind of adapted to this behavior and this treatment, that maybe I'm what's wrong. And so
Hmm.
that made me deal with a lot of inner demons of like, is this my fault because I'm feeling this? And that, like, it was just so much confusion around why it happened and how long it happened and how much I didn't do anything about it on my end, and then turned into anger towards my parents because I didn't feel like they were protecting me.
Bitter and
Um,
resentment.
yeah, it's a lot of bitter resentment. And so by the time 18 came, it was like, man, F this, I'm
Yeah.
going to just do me. And so I had a lot of anger that was stemmed from that nobody else knew about, that
Hmm.
kind of turned me into somebody I didn't like, and
Hmm.
it really took me to a dark place, and that's how I caught my first case, and in 2000, it was right when I graduated. A year after I graduated, I caught my first case. I had 7 felony counts. I was looking at 2 years, and that's where life was like rock bottom for me. But as soon as I was locked up, I'm looking at these charges. I'm kind of faced with, okay, like, I don't know what to do, and I'm stuck. I'm hitting the fork in the road. But I did the one thing I was taught to do ever since I was a kid.
Hmm.
It was pray.
Mm.
And so I was in jail. I literally was in there for about a month, and then I just got on my knees and I just asked God a simple prayer. Right, mind you, I prayed all my life, but it was
Yeah.
always repetitive,
Yeah.
and
And
it
there's
was always something. Yeah,
yeah. There's a difference.
because I was told to do it. This is what you do
It, it,
because
yeah. You did it out of your heart,
right. I
and
was
so
like,
God
it was
spoke.
simple
Yeah.
too. It was
Yeah.
simple. It was literally like, if you're real, tell me. If you're real, show me. And I was
Yeah.
so like honest about it,
Mm.
and a little upset because I was like, I grew up knowing about who you are, and it doesn't. I don't know, if it even any of it's even true. But if you're real,
Yeah.
show me.
And that's the difference. When you grow up in the church, you learn about him, but you're not really aware about him
Mm.
until you're woke, right? Until
Yep,
you really understand. Okay, you really feel like he's here.
the
So that
receptiveness, right?
exactly.
Yeah. So I got on my knees. I prayed, right, and it was crazy. The very next day, guys pushing, a cart of books, and all the books are stacked vertically, but the only book was the Bible on top. And I'm like, just this is probably like a scheme to convict all these sinners in this top tier. It's like just the
Yeah.
Bible, right? And I'm just like, and something just gravitated because that was the only book I knew,
Yeah.
right? And the title's on top, and I just asked, dude to just slide me the book under the door, and the first page I opened to was Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd,
Yeah.
and it man,
Yeah.
I got that tatted on my side because that was that first time I felt God's connection.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um, the Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. Um, and and the verse goes on, but the one that like punched me in my throat was, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I fear no evil," because I was
Hmm.
I was locked up with some people I had beef with,
Yeah.
and so there was like I was scared to go out my cell, and I
Yeah.
was dealing with fear. And
But
once
he
once I
told you
read
that
that, once I
you
read
felt.
that,
Yeah.
I felt it. I was like,
Yeah. You
yeah,
knew he, you
I'm
knew
not.
he, you knew that he had your back.
Yeah, so I was not gonna let fear dictate, the way I operated in there and how I, moved around. And so I was like, all right, if you're saying you're gonna protect me, I'm gonna walk out these doors, and that's gonna happen. And so Literally went down and sat down and just watched TV, and like a like Daniel in the Lion's Den, nobody touched me,
Yeah.
and so I can't even explain that to this day. But you know, and then it got to the point where I started reading my Bible. I was starting to really immerse myself in Scripture, and then everything that I learned as a kid was coming back. Mind you,
Yes.
mind you, I'm saturated in this, but now
Yeah.
there's an open
Yeah.
heart.
There's
So
understanding.
yeah, bro, and I've never felt more free in my life, but I'm locked up. So it went from wanting to go home to being excited to be locked up because of what I was discovering and what I was
Hmm.
learning and the revelations, and I started to really appreciate that this was for me, not
Yeah.
against me.
Not to you. It wasn't happening to you. It was
No, it
happening
wasn't
for you.
right. So I was really starting to humble myself, like, okay, so you're answering this prayer, and I'm really starting to feel your presence. I'm really starting to feel free and peace. Right. I'm no longer like scared. I'm no longer, feeling anxiety for not knowing what my fate is. Because of my sentencing, I started to really just be content with where I was at, but just experience true freedom.
Hmm.
And then I said, my family was visiting me. I'm expressing to them this whole process, and then I said, you know what? I'm gonna ask one more favor. You
Yeah.
know, so I said, God, if you're real, I said, I appreciate you revealing yourself to me, but could you let me know when I'm going home? It's just like that, right? So mind you,
Yeah.
as soon as I prayed that prayer, I'm kind of looking out my window looking for, I got I'm like,
Yeah.
May 30th is coming. I'm looking for the number 30 on these cars. You know what I mean? And I'm like searching for answers. I'm
Yeah.
desperate, man. I'm like, speak to me. Just send an angel to tell me. And then I got to this point of like, all right, if he really wants me to know, then he'll tell me. But I gotta be content with
Yeah.
how he does that and how he reveals. So I just stopped looking, right?
Yeah.
Well, June 4th is my day of sentencing. Mind you, this was a prayer I asked, but I have court at 3 p.m. And so that morning we get out for chow at 9 a.m. I come out and watching TV, and everyone's watching MTV because the music is just
Yeah.
everyone's trying to just release any kind of thoughts of being locked up. So every time we're out in rec time, we're watching MTV just to get some music in us.
Hmm.
So Jay-Z just released his Song Cry, right?
Yeah.
Song Cry. Look this up.
Okay.
So the video comes up, and in the beginning of the video, the date is June 4th, 2002. So the video must have just released. Now I'm still waking up groggy. I'm like this looking at the TV. And that morning was June 4th, 2002. And that was the day of my court date. And then I'm just staring at the TV, and then he goes back into time. I think it was June 4th, 1985. And that year popped out to me because there was a lot of things that happened to my dad during those years in ministry that he would always talk about. And so I like jumped up out of my seat, and by this time I was locked up with Danny, who's from San Mateo. I run into the cell. I'm like, bro, I didn't tell him what I saw, right? But I was like, I'm going home today. He's like, huh? He's like, bro, I'm going home today. He's like, bro, like I can't even explain it. So mind you, I get ready for court. Court is at 3. My public defender comes up, and he's got this sad look on his face, and he's like, how you doing? Um, are you okay? I'm like, I'm good, man. I'm going home today. He's looking at me like he's literally looking at me like, hey, I would chill, man. I don't mean to get your hopes up, but it's not looking too good for you. So I want you to walk in there just understanding the reality that you may face, the maximum sentence. And I was like, nah, man, trust me, I'm going home today. I come out, and I have my mom in the courtroom. The judge comes out, he reads my charges. He says, Barry Taimani, you get charged with gang enhancement, attempt to receive stolen property. Uh, you are getting released today. All the other 4 charges dropped, getting released today at 5 p.m. Time served.
Say less, yo. Hey,
So check
yo,
this
God
out,
is too real, bro. Let him know, Barry.
I'm
Let
telling
him
you,
know that he's real, man.
That
bro.
is wild.
There was just like this shock that like went through the courtroom for my mom, because we already talked about, what I possibly looking at, but my my lawyer looked like a deer in headlights, bro. Like he saw a ghost.
Yeah,
And when he walked out, it was what he said after that shifted my approach. Like, this lawyer didn't know that he was gonna say some words that was gonna really trigger some huge momentum in my journey. He came out, and I don't know if he was a believer. He looked at me in my eyes. He said, "How did you know?" In all the years that I've been doing this, I've never seen anybody walk into a courtroom with so much confidence, knowing their fate and what was
yeah,
going to be delivered. And I started crying, and I just said, "Look, man, I prayed and God answered." He told me the day, the year, the month, and I'm going home today. And he looked at me. He goes, "Well, I don't know. Whatever you pray to, don't ever stop." And then that was like
that's
the the,
heavy.
the stamp of like,
Hmm.
yeah, that was like God using him to really like
Yeah,
affirm, like, hey,
yeah,
like me answering your prayer, it's not just to release you from this situation, but this is about relationship. So don't stop pursuing me. Don't stop. Don't ever forget me. Don't just come to me when you're going through it. Just know that I'm
yeah,
gonna be with you. So like,
man.
I
And
get
what?
out.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah. So being a
Uh,
pastor was a that journey was a segue into it's a loaded question. Sorry, guys.
no, keep it
No,
going.
no, yeah.
Cause hey, you got
Um,
my juices flowing, man. I love talking about God and people's stories and their
yeah.
testimonies, man. It's just another way to to reel them in, right? To get to connect with God's people, man. Because this is it, man. It's real. It's a spiritual world, man. And a lot of people don't understand how real He is. They only come to
Mhm.
Him when they are in danger or
Right.
hurt, fear, and that and so on. But He does so much more on the other end of that, and people are not aware of that.
Mm,
If people
mm,
just take the chance to get a relationship with Him, then like it just there's peace, there's safety, there's fearless, there's less anxiety, and it's immediate too
right.
when you're rocking with Him, man. You know what I'm saying? And I have to tell my story about what my first
Please,
encounter with God.
please.
And it was a few years ago. So I've always been a surface level believer. Right? It wasn't until 2019 when I really started a relationship, because I didn't feel worthy enough to have a relationship with Him. So I didn't take that extra step to to get into the Bible and to seek a relationship with Him, because I was just still too much of a sinner. Right? We're all still sinners, but I
Mm,
just felt
mm,
unworthy of having a relationship. And I had a bad game one day, and then we had just got a new recruit in. His name is Springs, Akeem Springs, right? And he's kind of street, you know what I'm saying? And he showed some examples of everyone battling through some inner demons. And so, man, I had a bad game one day,
mm,
and like I'm just like, maybe it was a couple of bad games, and I'm just like, yo, God, like, what do I need to do, right? And so that night after the game, my man Akeem Springs, he was supposed to go kick it with my teammates, right? But he couldn't find them. He ended up coming over to the house, right? And we started chopping it up and stuff like that. And I had a cup of tequila in my hand, and my tequila cup got knocked over, right? And he's like, that happened for a reason, right? And I was like, okay, well, like what? That was God's way, right? And then I was like, indulge me, you know what I'm saying? Let me know what's going on. And so he's like, everything happens for a reason. Like, this was God, you know what I'm saying? What's your relationship like with Him? And we just had a whole conversation with that night, and he was just
mm.
like pointing out all of these signs and examples of how everything is connected and how there's no coincidence. The
Come
fact
on.
that he was supposed to go hang out with my teammates and they weren't there, and I was at the house myself. He ended up coming over and knocked my drink over, and he's like, that happened for a reason. And you know what? I was like, you know what? He's like, he brought me to the the idea of journaling, right? And so I started journaling. And I talked to God, right?
Yes.
That's when I really started talking to him. And what I asked for, we had a big game coming up. We had a huge game coming up. It was the sister, or it was a rivalry. It was the local rivalry. They hadn't been beat in a long time, bro. They hadn't beat them in 6 years, right?
Mm.
Night before I prayed to him. I said in the message, I said, God, all I want to do is help my team win, bro. Why did I hit the two free throws to win the game that next day?
Come on, man.
The two free throws that hit ever since then, I'm like, God is too real. And there's been multiple situations to where he's just you prayer and he answers. Prayer and he answers.
Yeah.
I got plenty of answers today, going through my motions and stuff like that. I was almost
Love it.
a little reluctant to get on here, but when I hear about people that are with God, I already knew there was going to be a fantastic conversation, and here we are, man.
Yeah.
Just blessed to be in this space right now, and so yeah, man. God is great, but
I
continue
love
on, man.
no, what you said, bro. It's realizing. One of my favorite Bible verses. This is one that my dad had on his truck. Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose.
Yeah,
And so when we're tapping into that, to that realm, and
that
we're
energy.
acknowledging God, right? When we're really acknowledging who he is, like, don't be surprised when things start happening. But
Yeah,
that's not to say that there's bad things that will not happen, right? But there is just more attention to the things that you're talking with God about, and so there's this awareness. And so when you step on the court, you're thinking about the conversation you just had, but you're operating from the faith that that He's with you in that.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And it becomes like all things work together. And
yeah,
so that cup that dropped, right? All things work together, right?
yeah,
That conversation, those guys that weren't there, those things work together for
yeah.
that game sealing
Exa-
2-point shot. You know what I mean? Free
Yo,
throw.
preach, Barry.
Come
Let them
on,
know,
man.
man. That's
Pay attention.
preach.
That's good.
Yeah, man, and that's also not that this is my calling, man, and having this conversation has just got me. God has been he's been flooding me
Come on.
with response and feedback today, and he's just affirming and reassuring
Come on.
and solidifying, and like this is it right here. Like this is confirming for me that I'm on the right path, and what you say about those bad things. No, the enemy's always attacking, right? Especially when you get closer to God. The attacks
Yep.
become real, and he tries to
Yep.
throw you off track. The distractions become amplified. Do you know what I'm
Right.
saying? And that's what happens. That's why everything is not all good. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's a daily battle, right? It's mental warfare on a daily, and we need this release valve, right? Because the world's a crazy place, and we need
It is.
we need to connect and be able to express like you did, right? To be able to talk about the things that you went through, because there's someone out there that has a similar story to you. Not
Right.
being able to express those feelings, bottling them up, and leading them to a path of more destruction.
Right.
So I'll take you again. I took the show.
No, bro.
You just got my juices flowing.
We're just going to freestyle right now because, like, when you're talking about, you know, even those hard things, right? And that, like, things get harder. I'm baptizing this kid tomorrow, right? This is a kid that I watched grow up in high school. He's been out of high school for 2 years, but he was on this journey of pursuing God. So we had a little one-on-one yesterday, and I told him, I said, look, man, I'm gonna be honest with you. You're making the best decision of your life, but it's about to get super harder.
Yeah.
But when you live life anticipating that it's going to get harder, but you have this hope, in Christ, and you have this hope of a God that's really intentional about walking with you through those storms, then you can walk with peace. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like when you anticipate that the life could go south, but you have hope and trust, in a God that says He'll never leave you nor forsake you. You're not dictated by the fear of what possibly could happen, but what could God do through me through what does happen. You feel me? So
Yeah.
the suffering of this time is nothing compared to the glory that will be revealed, which tells me that
Yes.
suffering produces something that nothing else can.
Yeah.
Trials
Oh
and
my goodness.
tribulations is the refining work that God uses as we trust Him and we tap into our faith, because faith not tested is faith that can't be trusted.
Yeah.
So you need to be tested, right?
Woo!
You need
Ooh, say
the
that
trial.
again. Say that again.
Faith
Say
not
that.
faith not tested is faith that can't be trusted.
Yes,
You
faith
know,
not tested. I
you
love that.
you
I
can
love
tell a
that.
person's you can tell a person's walk with God when they hit rock bottom, or when they're facing trials, when they're facing somebody that just died, or they're facing bad news from a doctor. It's because out of the overflow of your heart, your mouth speaks. Out of what
Yes.
you put in, you're going to project, right? So if you have Christ and you got His word, you got His promises, you got His affirmations, you got His word that is literally the thing that you combat everything that you face in life. What you think happens that when life does throw you some curveballs and you don't respond with what you know in God's truth, it just reveals that you were never in it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I try to tell people, like, you can tell a lot about a person's journey by when they hit, when they face trials. It shows and reveals where their heart was in the first place.
Yeah.
So I try to encourage people, I'm not about, I'm very active on my social media because I want people to follow my journey. You guys were able to kind of, look into who I was, but let's be honest, man. Like, character is who you are when nobody's watching.
Yeah.
Because my my family, my immediate family, my wife and kids, if they can't say better things about me than what I'm posting, then all
Yeah.
that's a front.
Whoo! Oh
All,
my goodness, Barry.
all
You
that's
just
all
keep
that's a It's a movie,
my
bro.
Man, that was probably
and
one of
that's
the.
that was literally in my blog post called The Mud, right?
Mm,
And it's about all the things, the factors that keep us stuck in that cycle.
come on.
And that was one of them. Social media, the facade of social media, and everyone posting all of this image that we're
Yep,
all
yep.
great, we're all having this merry
Perfection. Yep.
life, and everyone is falling in to that facade, and
Everybody
the
starts
toxic.
comparing themselves to that. When that's all that they
Yeah,
see, and they see all that happiness and all that type of stuff, man,
they
they
fall
they,
into
they
the
assume
trap.
that that's just how it is all the time for everybody. But
Right.
not everybody is always living that life, like you said, Barry. And that I think that is so important. What you just said about your family being able to say better things about you than what you're putting out there, because I mean that's really what it's all about. You can remove social media
Right.
and all those other things out of your life, but it's your immediate family, the ones that you surround yourself with,
Right.
that are really going to define who you are.
Yeah.
And that what you just said, man, that gave me chills.
Oh my goodness! I wish the whole world could hear that. Oh my goodness! And I
They
can't
will.
wait. There's gonna be a day. There's gonna be a day where the world hears that, Barry, because that's huge, man. And I want to go back to to talking about the trials and tribulations, because again, it's there's two teams, right? You're either playing for God or you're not. You're playing for the
Yep.
other side,
Yep.
and it's opposition always. And God will let you go through those trials, right? Just so your faith is tested. So
Yep.
He knows that you're rocking with Him. The enemy is always going to attack, and
Yep.
it's his job, not his job, but he wants you to stray away from God. He wants you to go do something crazy, to be in your emotions, and to act out of character, and to be
Yep.
to do something that's out of pocket, or to something that's not something that God would wants for you.
Well,
You know
the
what I'm
enemy
saying?
is going to give you what you want. God is going to give you what you need.
Yep.
Absolutely.
An enemy slick.
He's
You
too
know,
slick.
he's very conniving. He starts off small. He
Yeah.
tells you, just start off a little bit here. Nobody will see, and then you get deep into it. You realize, this. I speak this truth to my church, right? Anytime I preach, if I'm slipping, like, this is my way of calling myself out, because I know as a pastor, there's a passage that scares me, right? It says, by now, or not everybody should become teachers, because teachers will be judged on a higher standard, meaning that, as teachers and ministers, like, we have a role to preach the word of God, but to not compromise, not by basically only teaching, but by how we live our lives, right?
Yeah, it's by
Demonstration. So I'm very cautious on standing up before people about to give them a word if I slipped up.
Yeah.
Right. So I own up to this, you know, and I'm able to confess to my church. And sometimes I'm scared. I'm like, I hope, man, people are probably gonna walk out on me. But
like, chills. I don't think I've ever heard a pastor doing that. Continue, please.
And my mentor, Pastor Jeff Harris, was a G at really letting people know, hey, I'm messing up. I'm about to preach this word, but I can't preach it without confessing it. And so he modeled for me humility, because I'm able to preach with peace, knowing that I have this word for the people without the guilt of not being able to preach with the freedom, knowing that, hey, I'm going to lay it all out, you know. And so our hearts need to be honest, but the devil wants
that's the key right there.
You know,
honesty with yourself.
Yes,
right?
a
lot of people, and Kyle and I talked about this before too, especially in the area that we grew up in, the same area that you grew up too, right? The egos that were flying around over there, and it wasn't cool to open up in certain ways. So we kind of had to have that wall up, that protective wall, to keep us from being vulnerable, right? Because again, it wasn't cool to do that, right? So a lot of us are growing up with that false identity of who we were trying to be, and in complete denial of really who we are in our core. And some people, when they get to that position, you know, that you were in, they get to that fork in that road, and then they settle in to the other side of it. Well, here I am. I got myself in this position, or they're in denial about how they got into that position, but they settle into it, as opposed to like doing what you did and just kind of resorting back to what feels right, what is good, and you know, kind of asking yourself, how did I get here, and what can I do to get out of here? And you know, it's go ahead.
Because you're modeling when you do that, right? And because a part of it is confession, right? Where I love the passage that says, you know, confess your sins one to another, right? And pray for one another. Yeah. And so, because you will be healed, right? The part of the healing process is confession and really revealing the things that we struggle with, right? But when we hide those things, you can't heal what you don't reveal. Yeah. And so I think it's really a practice that is really intentionally practicing confession, but honestly, it's modeling for those that you're mentoring and you're teaching that this is how you do it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't model confession, you don't model transparency, then you're actually normalizing hiding your fears, hiding your baggage. You know,
exactly.
Like unintentionally. Right,
yeah.
Because
that's the issue from our parents' generation to us, right? Because you know that's what they were taught, is to keep all those emotions and everything that they have going on inside, and that related to us. So you know, when we're young, growing up going into those times of trying to figure out who we are, like you just said, you know, we're keeping a lot of that stuff suppressed inside, and we're not addressing the elephant in the room of what we have going on inside, and that could be a dangerous thing if you go through getting to being an adult without addressing those issues from when you were a child.
Right.
I have to say something. This is another example of how great God is, man. And Barry, I hope you have like an online sermon that you're doing, because you're going to be my new pastor, and this is why. You know, I be you laughing, but seriously, ever since.
Let's go. Hey, did we just become best friends?
Hey, yo, really? But hey, like, listen, but that's how God works, man. And I was just telling Sean earlier. I was just telling Sean earlier, especially like I said, when you're rocking with God, you know, your circle gets smaller, right? He starts removing certain people from your circle, you know, in your protection. But me knowing that all of us are sinners, that people are sinners, even pastors being sinners, I've always had not a fear, but I've always had a mistrust going to church. You know what I'm saying? Yep. That's why I haven't gone to church in a long time, because I have a problem with pastors, and knowing that pastors have deal with demons too. Pastors mess up too. They make mistakes. And then like they're on that stage, they're preaching the word, but they're not, like you said, modeling it at the same time. And for me, that's foul, right? And so for you to be able to go up there and be able to confess, to show the people that you're preaching that you're human, that's just that's you just, I mean, that's it right there. That's the ultimate connection right there. Because
Well,
you're
like you
revealing
said,
to yourself
Kyle,
that humility, right?
yeah, like you said, you had that insecurity with yourself, feeling like you weren't good enough to
Yeah.
pursue a relationship with God. Little did you know that you have pastors out there that didn't even live that life. Like Barry, the first half of his life wasn't even living like that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he was able to find that relationship and then pursue it. I don't think a lot of people realize that, like you just said, Kyle, how human pastors really are, and
Yeah.
the life
Because
that
everyone
they,
is.
Everyone is, and I think we forget
Yeah.
that sometimes. We hold certain people on pedestals,
And we shouldn't, and that's the destruction, not the destruction, but that's the poison in society today, is because there's a lot of idolatry, right? There's a lot of envy and people putting others on pedestals when they're all
Yep.
human, right? When we start,
Yeah.
once we start and get it, once we can figure it out and have that awareness and become aware of the fact that God has a purpose for us, then we can stop worrying about what other people are doing. Do you
Right.
know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because now we're like, okay, well, like everything in the world is of God, and there's God put wealth in the earth for all of His people. So we all have a piece of the cake. We all have a piece of the cake, but it's the enemy that is distracting us from getting there. And I was listening to something earlier. Myron Golden is his name, and he was saying that Satan knows that he can't block your blessings, but he can just distract you from them. And our
on,
world is
man.
distracted.
Come on,
Right?
bro.
You know what I'm saying? The world is distracted from the path that God has for us, and that's why a lot of us are in this mental funk. When you say something, when you meet people and they're like, "How's your day?" It's always hanging in there. You know what I'm saying? Because we
Right.
haven't figured out that God has purpose for us. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And go ahead.
The word is empathy, right? For me, because you can really, for me, I'm a leadership coach, right? And the the way that I can get people to really develop, right? As I'm discipling people or I'm helping people with leadership, is the goal is for them to develop, and you want to see that transition, and it starts here, but you want to model them as an apprentice of yours through your actions and through what you communicate to them through the Word of God, but you're modeling it, right? But it's empathy. How do I believe in transformation through immersion, which Christ immersed himself in community. And he was in the sanctuaries about 10% throughout scripture. And the times that he was in the synagogues, he was challenging, he was checking these fools. You know what I mean? He was challenging religious leaders that had the mind of scripture, but didn't have the lifestyle. And so for me, it was like, okay, in order for me to really help people grow, disciple them, is I had to immerse myself into their lives, sharing mine, practicing empathy so they can
Yeah.
relate, so we can be a bridge, so there's no
Building
even
that
Stephen,
trust.
build
That's
the trust because
build bridge of trust. Yeah.
I make mistakes too. I'm not perfect. So the best way that I can help you grow is don't put me on no pedestal. I'll knock that thing down quick.
Yeah.
Because the moment you do that, there's a slight. That's why pastors got to be careful with idolatry, because when you're the one that people go to, you're the one people call, you're the one that people seek answers for. Man, if you're not guarding your heart, that stuff can be extremely damaging to your heart, because you kind of pride over that position, right? But that's what Jesus says. In order to become great, one must become a servant. So it's humility to be a servant and have a posture of, I'm always going to serve people. I'm always going to, humble myself and not ever look at myself as higher than anyone.
Exactly.
But I will help you grow best when I can meet you where you're at, but also reveal. Like, in order to be fully loved, you must be fully known. So when I share the deep parts of me, it allows me to empathize with the reality that you might be facing the same, and that you need that transparency in order to see, okay, well, how did you get through it?
Yeah. It's
Okay,
you're
show
literally-
me.
Yeah, you're literally opening the bridge
Right.
for that connection, and that's
Right.
how the bridge of connection is formed, is by
Right.
being able to be vulnerable with somebody, being able
That's
to be
it.
like, okay, well, because the other person on the other side is like, okay, well, oh, okay, well, I might be a little safe. He's sharing something that's personal, right? He's sharing something that he wouldn't normally share with the world, and he's sharing it with me. Do you know what I'm
Yep.
saying? And so it creates that level of trust to where, okay,
Yep.
well, now I
You're
can let out,
relating.
now I can release, now I
Right.
can express what's going on with me.
Because there's common ground, right? There's
Yeah.
empathy and like, okay, so you're like me too. I say, bro, when I teach on emotional intelligence, right? And part of my curriculum when I'm teaching about emotional intelligence, what emotional intelligence is your capacity to understand your emotions in order to manage them. And
Mm.
but it also is your capacity to manage interpersonal relationships with that knowledge and to
Yeah.
move people in the desired direction. So the five key components of emotional intelligence is self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. So as a pastor, I use that as a father. I use that as a husband. I use that as a pastor, as a leadership coach, as working with my financial team. But it's being able to understand my emotions in order to manage them in real time, right?
Yeah.
So the more I can understand that God is I'm created in the image of God and He has built me to have these different emotions, and oftentimes we let our emotions get the best of us. But the
Mm-hmm.
one of the fruits of the Holy Spirit is self control. So we're called to manage those emotions and to really guide our steps through the Word of God, which is how we operate. And then it gives you the empathy to understand that everyone's emotional makeup and their EQ, their emotional intelligence, is different. It's at different levels. Some people are
Man.
unaware. Some
Oh,
people are
I have to
unaware of their
piggyback that. Yeah,
emotions.
go ahead.
Come on, bring it.
Hey. Whoo! Hey, the spirit is here, man.
Come on,
Yo,
man.
I, man, the what you say about that is because I'm sure I was telling Sean about this, and this is why people need to take judgment, out of their profile. I would say. I mean, everyone's going to be opinionated, but
Yes.
you have to be careful what comes out your mouth because it comes from the heart. But
Right.
everyone, look, you said has their own EQ, right? Their own
Mm-hmm.
emotional bandwidth, right?
Yep.
And so what we go through in our experiences is what we're dealing with, and
Mm-hmm.
it's our emotions that we have to deal with, and nobody else. Only
Right.
the only other person that can deal with it is God,
Yep.
right? And so we as people need to stop judging people for how they feel in their emotional state because it's theirs. They're
Mm-hmm.
entitled to those emotional feelings. Obviously, we need to be able to regulate them, but it's that
Yep.
empathy that we need to have to try and understand, okay, well, what are they going through? They're going something and it's for real. They're actually having these feelings. You know what
Yep.
I'm saying?
Based off of their
Regardless,
lifelong
Right.
experiences.
You don't
exactly,
know the
regardless
trauma.
of how stupid you may think it is,
Right.
or how simple you may think it is, to them it might be bigger than what it is because of how whatever trauma that we had,
Well, that's
right?
the importance of, like Barry said, putting yourself out there and being honest and being, true with your intentions on what you're doing and what you're opening up about. Because again, if you're not putting yourself out there to somebody that needs that connection, they're going to pick up on that and they'll shut down.
Yeah.
So if you're able to at least take that first step, because a lot of people,
Mm.
they're bitter, they're cold out there. They don't really,
They're
they
hurt.
haven't. They're hurt.
The word is hurt.
Their emotional intelligence isn't quite as high, right?
Yep.
And they need that little bit of a baby step to get towards that bridge that's being created.
Right.
And by doing that, by opening ourselves up, that's what's going to help people do that.
Right. And your IQ is your academic intelligence, right? EQ
Yeah.
is your emotional intelligence. And we understand that we operate based off what we know and how we feel, right? But when you get those two in line, right, where
Yeah.
you're managing what you consume in terms of growing intellectually, right? You're out of, like I said earlier, out of your overflow of your heart, your mouth speaks. So the things you watch, the things you listen to, the people you expose yourself to, the
Yeah.
spaces. Show me your 5 friends,
Exactly.
and I'll show you your future. Right? When you're exposing yourself voluntarily to people that are far ahead of you, right? So like my main 5 people I keep around me are way more successful than I am, but I need those people to really help me get to where I want to get, right? But it's just like when you're managing what you're consuming, but then you're developing a high EQ so that you understand that, man, all the choices I make are driven by my emotions, but when I can regulate them, bro, you become you become a force in this community, man.
Listen, I mean, this is just this is another situation of God just solidifying my path, because everything you were speaking
I
of
love you, Kyle.
I love you too, Barry. Hey, look, what you're speaking about is in my blog, The Mud, and I had this this thought, and this was months ago, and I want to put it. I want to make sure I put it in the right words. Yeah. But your thoughts, your decisions are derived from your thoughts, right? Yes, your actions are a direct result of your thoughts. You know what I'm saying? So if you don't regulate your emotions and you let them regulate your thoughts, then those actions that you're putting out are going to be destructive, could lead you down a destructive path. And I'm not even saying it the way that I want to say it, but what you said is exactly what I was trying to say in my blog, because I had it like almost had it like a formula of because it's like it's a cycle. It's all connected.
I want to see it.
You know what I'm saying? Your emotions are connected to your thoughts, and your thoughts are connected to your decisions, and decisions, your actions are a direct result of them. Your actions are direct result from your decisions, and so we have to be mindful of the emotions and
self-awareness.
Exactly. Yep. So we have to be mindful of our thoughts.
Like you said, in the heat of the fire too, man, because like you're saying, sorry to cut you off, Kyle.
No,
if you're not mindful of your thoughts and you let that start to snowball, man, get ahead of you, get the best of you. Yeah. And again, as fathers, when we have little ones around watching us and how we deal with things, that's how they're picking up on that. And then they take that on saying, all right, that's how I deal with things. That's how I respond to things. That's that generational trauma that we were talking about before, right? Yeah. And Kyle, we've said this on here before, with Justin too, actually being in control of what you are consuming, not just with food, but the content that you put in, the conversations that you're having, the people that you're surrounding yourself with, right?
And that's heavy, what you said right there, Sean, because a lot of people don't understand that it's spiritual warfare. Mental warfare is almost a global term, but spiritual warfare is a deeper meaning.
Under attack.
It starts in your mind, and that's where the enemy is slick. That's where he attacks you.
Right? Well, that's where he's chilling, right? Because
but that's he's just
your
waiting.
Mind is not your friend, especially when you're
he's
left
just
by yourself.
waiting for
it's your heart that you need to follow.
Exactly. And he's just waiting for that type of material to stir you up, and that's why I don't watch too many horror films anymore. Like I don't really watch
negative content.
But for me, I stem from the fact that there's some history behind, if we're talking about all the other genres of movies, action comedies, and the heist and whatever the case is, there's always some type of truth to some story, right? Whoever's producing it is producing it with some type of energy, right?
That thought came from somewhere.
The thought came
they were having.
Exactly, right? And so it's like what you're consuming, right? It may be fake on TV, but it's all energy. Yeah, it's all very real.
Exactly, and I've talked about that before too, man. Being not just the things that you watch, but the things that you say too. Talking negatively about yourself or people around you and stuff like that. Your subconscious doesn't know any different, and it's just picking up on that negative, whatever it is. So yeah, if you're watching negative movies or having negative conversations, talking to yourself negatively or whatever it is, it's just negative. That's what you're going to put. That's what you're putting out there. That's what you're going to get back. Yeah. So if you're putting in positive content, having positive conversations, being around positive people, doing positive things, you're going to get positive results, right?
Yeah, that's I haven't wrote my next blog yet, but that's reciprocated energy, right there. Yep, exactly. It's another, AKA karma. And the karma, the whole world is so much. The word is so much deeper than what people use it as, right? They're like, oh, if you do that, it's going to be karma, right? But karma is everything. It's the energy you're putting out. It's the energy that you're putting back into the world.
Living that law of attraction.
Exactly. It's it's energy reciprocation within your relationships, with
Yep.
your energy, with yourself. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? And
Well, that's where it
like,
starts. That's where it
exactly.
starts. You have that positive relationship with yourself. I mean, if you're being negative towards yourself, putting in negative content, doing negative things, how are you going to be positive for other people? You're not going to be. You're going to have
exactly,
that negative baseline.
Yeah, and for you, to go back on what you was talking about, Barry, with being a model, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're getting up preaching the word and not living by the word, that's hypocrisy. You know what I'm saying? Like, how are you?
And people will pick up on that negative
Like,
energy
and,
too.
and even for me, like me wanting to be a helper and be, a leader and change people's mindset, I have to change mine first.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I gotta change mine first. I can't be telling other people, well, this is what you gotta do, this, and that, in order to be successful or to be able to be on your path, when I'm not doing those same things to be on the path that God has for me. So it's like you said, Barry, it's just showing as being that example, that model for people that can follow. Okay, well, he did it. He's doing it. You know what I'm saying? He's already led that path to be able to follow. If there's no path to lead, you're leading them astray. You know what I'm saying? So it's important to continue to act on what we're actively trying to preach.
I got my boy Brett in the next room, and it made me think about something he told me. Ever since I started a youth ministry, he asked me this question about legacy, right? And that question changed everything, and it changed the way that I learned, right? The things that I was consuming, because my choices, are derived from my thoughts, what I'm consuming. So my legacy literally started to unfold as I was intentional about what I was depositing in my heart, exposing myself to. But you sow a thought, you reap an action. You sow an action, you reap a habit. You sow a habit, you reap a character. You sow a character, you reap your destiny. So when you decide to choose wisely the things that you're retaining, and the people you're around, the books you're reading, the podcasts, you start to proactively step into action, and then consistently, right? It's the power of repetition, the power of reps, the power of consistency.
You're rewiring.
You're rewiring. Yep.
You're repping the subconscious. I'm so glad I got able to say that, because this was a long time coming, and this is my goodness. I'm just feeling so grateful right now, man. Like, man. You're just spitting it. You're spitting it out, because it's repping the subconscious, right? Your body, your body is the subconscious. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? We get into the gym, we rep it out, so our body knows it. So our body knows it better than our mind does. And I want to go back to what you were saying about what you're actively putting in, because today, actually was yesterday, I was driving to Carl's Jr. yesterday, and it's about a 25-minute drive because it's kind of far. Mm-hmm. And speaking of Carl's Jr., I used to go to Carl's Jr. with Isaiah, like back in high school. A few times he used to take me and Nate to Carl's Jr. up the street. But anyways, I was going to Carl's Jr. I just had my thoughts, and when you have your thoughts to yourself, and it can be a dangerous place at sometimes. And so you're like, you know what? I'm just gonna start occupying that time, that mental time space, with something that's going to be fruitful for my future, something that's going to be educating to my mind, something that's going to be motivating to something that's going to lead to my purpose, versus being in my mind. You said it, distractions, right? Because the distractions are what keep you stuck. Mm-hmm. Right, so if you're, like you said, if you're constantly
keep you unfocused on the goal,
and so what you're watching. Like, if you're not watching something that's stimulating, that's purposeful, you're going to be watching something that's wasteful. You know what I'm saying? And then it's going to be either, unproductive to your future, or it's going to be dragging you somewhere you don't need to be. Mm-hmm. Right? So either way, it's going to be working backwards, because it's distraction to your production. Right? And I was talking to my spiritual mentor earlier today, and we were talking about the pressures I had about, what I'm saying, like a certain amount of money that I need to make. And he's like, saying, don't get involved with like, in performance, saying stick with God and stuff like that. And it allowed me, to dial back and, to think about, the task at hand. and I'm like going off on tangents and losing my train of thought. Shoot, but I know I lost my train of thought. You guys have me going. But yeah, the distractions that prevent us from being our best selves. And even today, I just kept on watching the people that are motivating to me, Myron Golden and some others that God has shown me, and it's allowed me to be more productive to what I'm trying to do versus, because sometimes I wake up in the morning lost. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's time wasted, right?
Right.
That's because that's a distraction from what I'm supposed to be doing, and that's the enemy, right? And so like that's basically like that energy, like you said, because you're either helping yourself, you're either doing it to you, or you're doing it for you, right? And so it's just that being aware. Go ahead, bro.
I saw something earlier this week that there's like 10 future versions of yourself, but that is determined by how you respond today, right? So like there's a 10 years from now, there's a Barry that if I don't do certain things, that's the Barry.
I believe that 1,000%.
And then there's a Barry like if I look back at 10 years, 10 years ago, and because I'm looking at my life now, man, I trip out because like even I gotta scratch my head and like wonder like how did I get here? I'm a pastor. I'm working for this elite financial team. Getting paid to speak at schools. I'm like, and I made a goal 10 years ago to get paid to speak, right? And that happened through my just devotion to making sure that I was get better at doing this. But there's 4 stages of learning. I don't know if you guys have ever learned this, but this is the beauty of like making sure that the Barry 10 years from now is going to be one that I'm proud of. Because I know he's cheering me on, right? Because if I can speak to 10 years ago, I'll be like, bro, keep pushing, bro. I'm gonna be so proud of you, right? But the 4 stages of learning, right, is the first stage of learning in any field, right? If it's leadership, if it's fixing a car, right? It starts off with unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know, right? Like when I wasn't pursuing leadership, I didn't know about leadership, so I didn't know what I didn't know. But the second stage is when I started to learn, where it became conscious incompetence. I was now aware of the things that I know because I'm learning. I'm exposing myself to podcasts and John Maxwell and Simon Sinek, right, and Francis Chan. I'm exposing
awareness and knowledge,
leader, right. And then you start to develop, a knowledge of it, conscious competence, where now you're making conscious effort to develop not only based off what you know, but you're putting those things that you're learning into practice. I'm now saying yes to speaking engagements. I'm not saying yes when they're asking if I can preach on this Sunday. So like now there's conscious competence, but then you do that 10,000 hours, it becomes unconscious competence. Right, where you're unconscious, you mastered it. You mastered it. You're not thinking no more. But like you just said, right?
Your body knows it, but your body knows it better than your mind does. You don't got to think about it.
And that's transformation. You have now become the person that you've wanted to become because you were disciplined and you're patient with yourself, but you made the effort to stay the course. Because go back to the distractions. There are a lot of distractions that is going to prevent us from becoming the best version of ourselves, right? But you have to dial it in. You have to know my boy said this on a podcast that I just posted on my story. He talked about his whole goal is like it's his great grandkids. Right, it's the legacy he lives that leaves today that's going to affect those kids he'll never meet, right? And that speaks volumes on the intentionality of what you're doing today to make sure that you're constantly developing and growing as a person, right?
Man, and me and Sean had a brief conversation about that earlier because you're constantly learning, right? There's always something to learn, You know, there's a
Always.
billion, 7 billion people in the world with 7 billion different minds and all the creations created in God's image, right? So there's,
Yeah.
you know, at least 7 billion different ideas
Come
that
on.
we can be learning from, right? And so it's like you said, it's the constant personal, like, trying to indulge in personal development and continuing to get
Yeah.
better on a daily basis, because there's no cap to really how much you can
No
learn.
cap.
I mean,
Love
my
that.
kids, I'm learning from my
Yeah,
kids.
no cap.
I'm learning from no cap,
Well,
no pun
exactly.
intended.
And
I'm
I was
learning
just
from my
talking about
kids.
that on my last episode too. That being able to have that mindset to realize that you can learn from everybody, including your own kids.
Sure,
Because you know, a lot of times, you know, as adults, we get caught up in the fact that because we've been around longer, we've experienced more. You know, we know better, and that therefore we know what's right and we know what's wrong, and you know, we tend to push that on our kids. And again, that goes back to that generational trauma that we were dealing with. But it's part of that self-awareness to realize that that you have people watching you, and you gotta, like, I lost my train of thought, but the self-awareness to know that your actions matter, and
Yep.
not just with those around you, but for yourself as well.
Yeah.
And you know, if you're having those negative thoughts and you're acting off of those negative thoughts, it's just a recipe for disaster.
Bro, and I love that you pointed that out, because how do we find the light in each person, right? Like,
Yeah.
so every Saturday, I get to serve breakfast. We just had the men from my church come and support us this morning. But this is a ministry that we started 2 years ago. But every single Saturday, man, if y'all want to join, man, slide through. We cook breakfast at my mom's, and then we take it. We hit the streets. We prepare a table, and we got a community out there that are waiting for us to show up. We get to meet them right where they're at. But you know, oftentimes we get, people be like, hey, can I get some community service hours? We'd love to come help. And in the early stages of my ministry of doing this, I was like, yeah, just show up. But I'm like really overprotective of this community because I know them personally. So like I start to be more aware of the intentions of others when they're stepping foot in the room.
But you have to, right?
Yeah,
Because
so
go ahead.
no, but the point I was trying to make is that what started off as us showing up to do a good thing and to obey Scripture, to love our neighbors or self, to love the least of these. Initially, we were doing it in obedience, trying to do the right thing. But God is a trip, because what ends up happening as you're stepping in and finding the light in each person is that you're developing this type of empathy where you're meeting people where they're at, but they're actually changing the way you see yourself because you're learning more from them than you thought that you were going to even give.
Yeah.
So there's
That's
common
right.
there's common ground. There's like
Perspective.
there's mutual respect. There's this understanding that I'm coming and I'm bringing food, but the way that you changed my life and making me see love and compassion and generosity through the lens of this table is something I can't repay you for that. There's no value. There's no monetary gift or money that can that will weigh the amount of transformation and character that I've developed from that. So it's finding the light in each person. It's meeting with the high school kid who's struggling and realizing, yeah, I'm gonna mentor you, but in the process, let me let you know that I have a lot to learn from you too. Right. So when
That's
you
huge.
step,
That's a great way to build a bridge.
bro,
Yeah.
when you step into people's lives, not thinking that you're above them and that you are, far more educated or you're far ahead because of your position, like leadership is not it's not based on titles, right?
And it's
It's
not.
it's based off influence. So when a person can influence you to do good, right? Like that goes like you said, Sean. Like my kids have taught me more in the early stages of parenting. I thought I was doing all the giving advice and teaching and all the counseling. Bro, I learned more from my kids than I learned in school.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like because they were teaching me the valuable lessons of like listening, right, and paying attention
Exactly.
to the details of the things that they care about. time. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, especially in the
Time is
world of
huge. Because I
distractions,
always
right?
say kids are a direct
Mm.
representation of time.
Yes,
Hmm.
man. And so, like, our kids have taught us so much. I'm grateful for my four kids, Kiara, Evangelia, Kalina, and Ezekiel. They are changing my life, and I'm constantly a student of them because
Yeah.
Hmm.
of just the ways that they've taught me, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm glad we brought that back because I did lose my train of thought on it. But yeah, being able to learn from our kids, because again, being a dad, I'm learning how to be a dad from my kids.
Woo! And you took it right out of my mouth, man. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Come on, come
well,
on.
that's what I was saying earlier, right? And but again, I came into this whole situation of being a dad. I was a stepfather first, right? And I felt like I had that down pretty good. But when my daughter came into this world, man, I'm telling you, she turned it upside down, or she turned it right side up, I should say. Because I was upside down before, and again, being able to have that open mind to realize that I can learn just as much, if not more, from these little ones. That was a huge step in my own little personal growth,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and if
I
everybody
can't.
has that mindset towards everybody, that
Yep.
you can learn
Man.
from anybody at any given time.
And I
Yeah.
love that. And that's almost been like the
Good.
phrase of the month.
Love
And I
that.
was talking to a buddy of mine who's younger than me, and he was having a battle of his superiors, and there's a verse in it, and I can't recall the verse. I think it's like 1 Corinthians something. I'll have to look back, and I got to do more, be better at studying on my scriptures, because there's been so many scriptures that I've come across, and that have come up in conversation.
Yep.
But the fact that you can learn from anybody, and I told him, because he's like 23 or 24, something like that, and I told him, like, you can learn from anybody, like, you know what I'm saying. And in the scripture it says you're a fool not to be open, to have open ears, to everyone, that is, to anyone and everyone, and saying, it says not to be discouraged by people, not to be discouraged because of your age, because if you have
Yeah.
knowledge,
Timothy,
yeah. Oh, if
don't don't
that,
don't neglect your youth. Paul's
yeah,
speaking to the young people in the church.
yeah, because
Yeah.
everyone has knowledge, and if you're not open to learning, you're restricting yourself from growth. And that goes for anybody, that's even if they're younger than you or whoever, especially our kids. You know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
we gotta be. There's a lot of people that are really prideful when there's somebody younger spitting knowledge on them. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, oh, well, you're younger than me. What do you know? But again, there's experience. Everyone has experience, right? And
Yeah.
experience is knowledge. And so there you have something to learn from everyone.
Yeah. Amen.
Absolutely.
That's it.
But we are running short on time.
Man, we gotta run this
Barry,
back though, man.
yeah, oh man, we have to. I
Yeah,
mean, we
man.
have to. The juices are just flowing. Barry, before we get off, man, if there's
Yep.
anybody that you can, any advice, words of wisdom that you can give to the people out there in the world that are struggling to find that light, do you know what I'm saying? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, man. There's a God that loves us so much, right? And you know, we don't know that we need God until we realize that we are sinful, right? And so,
Yeah,
man, you don't gotta look too far to look at this world and why it's so crazy, and we look at our human nature and the condition of our hearts, like we're wicked, but
yeah.
um,
The
God
body
is
wants what
rich.
it wants.
Right, we live in the flesh, but that was never God's plan, right? And so,
Exactly.
the God is rich in mercy, and that He loved us so much that He sent His only Son to lay down His life on our behalf,
Yeah,
and His love is displayed through Christ on the cross. But my sin and your sin and the sins of the world was so bad that the only means to provide us with the atoning salvation that he gifts us with was through his son, which reveals the magnitude of his love.
yeah,
And so when you can really, man, to anybody who's watching, God loves you so much, and he wants a personal relationship with you. It starts with humility and just receiving that love. God will never He will never impose or force his love on us, but he gives us the option to choose. But when we say yes, we will not only experience eternal life, but we will experience abundant life here and now. And
Yeah.
I'm just a conduit of God's grace and love. And so I'll finish off by saying that gratitude is an attitude. When you save somebody out of a burning building, you're not just gonna walk out, and be like, "Hey, thanks." Right? No,
Yeah.
you're gonna
Right.
you're gonna drop on your knees and you're gonna say, "Man, like I owe you my life. I owe
Yeah.
you my life by how." And so there is a response of gratitude with a loving God that says, "Hey, I want
Whoo.
to save you, but I don't
Hey,
just save you. I want to use you. I want to
man.
I want to
And
take you to places that only I can." You know, and
and
so
I
it's relationship.
yeah, and I hate to cut you off, but
Good.
no, but that's no, but that is what that's what God is about. Dang, I'm about to lose my train of thought. I didn't want to cut you off, but that's what God is about in the relationships that I got it that you have with them. You think about your mom, you think about your parents, you think about your siblings and all of your loved ones, and and it's not the case for everyone, right? There's a lot of turmoil and a lot of demons within the household of themselves, right? But you think about your mom, right, and your parents, and you're connected to them because of what they do for you, the love they had for you, the support, right? Since you were younger, everything that you needed, you go to your mom and she gave you what you needed, and
Hmm.
that built a connection and a bond. And that's the message that I've been wanting to get out to the people about God and why. Because I've always been like, man, like I used to believe in Jesus, but like I love God and Jesus so much now because of
Hmm.
what He's done for me in my life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like you said, like it's like He saved me out of a burning building.
Yeah.
And because of that, I'm grateful, and He's done it time and time after again. And so
Yeah.
now this relationship, it's like, well, this is what God has done for me. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Like, and because He's done it time after time, and it's, again, I have a spiritual relationship with Him. It's just like, okay, when I do something bad in the spiritual world, I feel it. You know what
Yep.
I'm saying? It's like I cheated on God. You know what I'm saying? And that's the kind of relationship that I have, and my prayer to everyone else out in the world to get one
Yeah.
too. And that's how real He is. It's what He does for you in your life. You know what I'm saying? That keeps you secure, like you love your mom. He is the Father,
Mhm.
right? We're all
Yeah.
children.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, go ahead, go ahead, go
Yeah.
ahead,
But
Sean.
gratitude is an attitude, man.
Yeah,
No, that's man. This episode was a to say it was a mind blower and an eye opener is an understatement. Barry,
I
I
mean,
want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you came on here and opened up about. It was huge. I cannot wait to go back and watch this episode myself because I feel like there was just
say
so much
less,
that I'm like, oh man, I
Love
was
that,
trying really
man.
hard not to just write shit down, everything that you were saying. I
But
was
you
like,
know
man,
what?
this is
Hey,
this
but I'm
key,
gonna have
but
to. But that's what I'm gonna do next time, and that's you know what? And I'm still working on personal development, and it's trusting your gut. You know what I'm saying? And going with your gut, because a lot of times, your gut's connected to the spiritual world, and it's leading you. It's God trying to lead you to the right decisions and the right path. And in the beginning of this, I was just like, man, like I know Barry's gonna have some knowledge, man, to spit, and I should have had my notebook handy. And you know what? It's a learning experience, right? I'm gonna have my notebook handy because there's some verses that you have spitting knowledge as you was preaching, and this is gonna be a part of. I'm gonna be in here like, okay,
Yeah.
like you know what
Hey,
I'm
to,
you
to
saying?
answer
guys,
your question earlier, Barry, yes, we did just become best friends.
let's do it.
Yeah,
Listen, man. Look, I want you guys to know, man. I appreciate you both so much. And we got a lot of trash being spewed on the social media platforms, and like when I saw what you guys are talking about, man, I just want to encourage you. Like, bro, you have my support, but I want to just encourage you both to continue this because the world needs you. There are people in the world that Kyle and Sean can connect with and help and get through some really dark times. And that's a powerful thing to understand that somebody needs you, Kyle. Somebody needs you, Sean. And the work that you're doing, don't take it lightly. You're saving people's lives. Look at it like
likewise,
that.
Barry. Likewise,
bro.
Barry. You know what I'm saying? Because like this right here is just all knowledge. You know what I'm saying? This is what God has intended for us to have this knowledge community to bounce ideas off of each other. You know what I'm saying? We're supposed to be unified. We're not supposed to be doing this alone. You know,
To
We're
build and
supposed to
grow
be
together.
Yep.
That's it.
Exactly.
There's power in community, man.
Absolutely.
100%.
Forget that, bro. Forget a Zoom call. Let's go grab dinner.
Yeah.
Let's just build community together.
Let's
so
let's
grateful
connect,
for you guys.
bond.
Thanks for the time, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Before we head out,
yeah.
where can people find you at? Where can, if people are looking to get involved in the type of stuff that you're doing, where can they find you? How can they reach out?
Yeah. So easiest way to reach me, if you go to my Instagram, is lowercase Barry BARRY _1975, and if you click the link in my bio, it has my website and has access to my emails, all my socials, my projects, my financial team, the work that I do in the community, my church, and so just that's how you can get a hold of me. Some of the projects that I got coming up, we are taking the Shift Conference. And what EFT is the nonprofit I work for, where we're teaching financial literacy to our PI community. We're trying to change the narrative of how people see money. And so I bring the leadership aspect to our curriculum. And so we're going to be in Hawaii August 26th. And then next Saturday, I'm partnering with the Newark Police Department with the bike rodeo. We get to bless the families with some bikes, and that is a presentation I get to be part of next Saturday morning at the community or the Silliman Center. But
shout out to the Silliman Center.
Yeah, Silliman Center,
Right.
That's the spot. And then lastly, I serve every Saturday, 7:00 at my mom's house. You can just reach out to me if you're interested in serving our community. That's something that we do every single weekend. And so, leadership coach, if you want to get married, I officiate weddings. I do marriage counseling. I'm counseling 2 couples and marrying them in October and November. And I also do grief counseling for anyone who's dealing with a loss. So I officiate funerals too, and I get to sit with families in their dark times and in their victories. So that's me, man.
It's a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. You're doing a lot of great things for a lot of great people, man. And I appreciate you coming on and opening up about all of it.
Absolutely. Well, all right, people of the world, thank you for tapping in. Like always, please chime in, tap in, comment, share, like. Let us know what you think. Try and connect. Hit Barry up if you have some questions.
Absolutely.
Some powerful information. Thank you for watching.
Yeah.
Until next time.
Peace.
Thanks, everybody.